What's up, guys, and welcome back into Breaking Boards. In today's episode, we're going to break down the two-game main slate over on DraftKings for Monday, September the 15th. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to Houston to take on my Texans, and we have the Los Angeles Chargers traveling to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. I hope you guys are excited. What a crazy slate of Week 2 games yesterday. And to close this thing out for Week 2, let's jump right into the player-by-player breakdown for the two-game slate over on DraftKings. The first game we're going to take a look at is going to be the Tampa Bay and Houston game. Taking a look at the Tampa Bay side. And before we break this down too far, if you are playing on both sides tonight, if you're playing on FanDuel and DraftKings, I would lean playing this game over on FanDuel first. In that, if you see here, Baker is the highest priced quarterback on DraftKings. He's actually the second priced QB over on FanDuel. And then the same thing with Stroud. Stroud is the third priced QB on DraftKings. He is the cheapest QB over on FanDuel. And then I would lean playing the Chargers and Las Vegas game over on DraftKings. I will have a little bit of both on both sides of the aisle there on FanDuel and DraftKings, but just to break that down for you guys before we jump into this player-by-player breakdown. But going back to Tampa Bay here, you have Baker at the QB position. I don't mind pairing him up with one of these running backs. You can go Bucky, Rachaad White, or if you want to get crazy in the millionaire maker, you can go Sean Tucker as well. My preferred option in smaller field would be Bucky. In medium field would be Rachaad White, and Sean Tucker would be my dart throw in large field GPPs. So we're talking about the millionaire maker. If you put in Sean Tucker into the lineup, we're talking about a 5,000 man field or higher if you are putting Rachaad White in your lineup as the primary. And we're talking a couple of 100-man tournament if you're putting in Bucky Irving as your running back selection. Just for the sake of this video, we will plug in Bucky Irving. And then looking at the wide receiver position for Tampa Bay, you got Mike Evans and Ejbuka. You also have guys, lower price guys here that dart throws for that millionaire contest that we talked about. Sterling Shepard would be my top option there, as we still are without Chris Godwin and we are without Jalen McMillan. And then as we look at the tight end position, we have Cade Otton, who I think is a great option tonight, especially if you're playing over on FanDuel, as Houston gives up a ton of touchdowns to opposing wide receivers and opposing tight ends. At least they did last year in 2024. So my preferred stack here would be Baker, Bucky, and you could go one of the two of these guys and Cade Otton, or I would go with Baker, both receivers, and a tight end and look to get Genty and Amari and Hampton from the late slate game in at the running back position. So it should be pretty easy for you to fill in the running back, wide receiver, flex, and defense after you start with this breakdown. I am typically building for onslaughts in these two-game slates. And then I will say that anything that you have saved in your optimizer as far as rules, that kind of thing, throw that out the window on a two-game slate. Nothing matters. It's the Wild West on a two-game slate. You can play your defense versus your quarterback. None of that matters. You can play your opposing defense versus your running back. Again, nothing matters. Throw it all out the window and start from scratch for tonight's build. And that's going to do it for the breakdown for Tampa Bay. As we look over at the Houston side, we have CJ Stroud. You have Nick Chubb, Woody Marks, and Dameon Pierce, and to a lesser extent, Ogbonwale. I would play one of those guys, but I would not play more than one in the same lineup. For the sake of this one, I would probably look to lean, Marks, Pierce, or Ogbonwale. I feel like Chubb's going to be more popular than what I feel like he should be on a two-game slate, so he'll be the one I look to be under the field on. And I'm going to want a pass catching back in that. Houston's offensive line may be the worst, if not the worst, in football. And I don't want somebody who's not going to catch that many passes out of the backfield. So if we're going to pair someone, let's just get different and weird for this video, and let's go with Ogbonwale. And then as we look at the wide receiver position, we are still without Christian Kirk. So we're going to plug in Nico Collins, and then you can get either Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, or Xavier Hutchinson. Don't mind whichever one of those guys you want to put in the lineup. For the sake of this one, we will skip over those guys. And then my preferred secondary stack here with the Houston side would be Dalton Schultz. So you're talking about a Stroud, Ogbonwale, Nico Collins, and Schultz. And then if you want to run it back on the other side, you have Bucky, you have Mike Evans, you have Ejbuka. Pretty decent amount of salary here left, especially once you plug in a defense. So you can pretty much plug in whoever you like from Tampa Bay. And then going back over these Houston guys, Nick Chubb's just someone I'm going to look to be under the field on. I don't think he has a great game tonight. Tampa Bay was pretty stout against the opposing running game in 2024. So if I'm going to play a dart throw here for the Houston side, it would be Marks, Pierce, or Ogbenwale. Those guys are going to be decent-sized field tournament options here for me. I do think that there are some clear RB1s on the slate. I mean, you have Bucky, you have Genty, Amari Hampton, although he hasn't looked good to this point. I do think that's someone that's going to be better suited for later in the season. So I'll look to try to be overweight the field on Marks, Pierce, and Ogbenwale, but it's going to be very specific contests that I get over the field on those guys. Nico Collins, you can play him in any setting. Jaden Higgins, week 1, what did he do? He had 3 targets. I mean, that's not anything to write home about. He would be more of a FanDuel play for me in that he is a bigger wide receiver and should be catching touchdowns. If you think Jalen Noel gets on the field more, you could play him here, and he could take some of the Christian Kirk role. But the Christian Kirk role primarily went to Xavier Hutchinson in week 1. Don't mind playing him as a dart throw as well. And at that $3,200 and $3,300 salary, if you want to get loaded up on Ashton Genty, Omarion Hampton, Bucky Irving, Nico Collins, Mike Evans, Ichbuka, those kind of guys, you can definitely get those guys in your lineup by playing one of these cheap guys. And I will look to mix and match those guys in my large field tournaments. And then I do like Dalton Schultz quite a bit tonight. And then you can also play Harrison Bryant. If I was going to play Harrison Bryant, it would be over on FanDuel that we talked about earlier, in that I would be touchdown hunting with a cheaper tight end. So that's going to do it for the Houston and Tampa Bay game. And then we look at the Chargers. Next up here, we have Justin Herbert, Amarian Hampton, to a lesser extent, Najee Harris, although I just don't really see it with Najee so far this year. You have a ton of wide receivers you can take a look at here. You have McConkey, Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen, Trey Harris, and Lambert Smith. If I were going to pick my 2 favorite for DraftKings, I would pick McConkey and Keenan Allen. If we're talking about for the FanDuel side, I would take out Keenan Allen and I would put in Quentin Johnston. But for the sake of this video, we're going to put Keenan Allen back in there. And then I do love the tight ends here for Los Angeles tonight, in that there's so many of these guys that I don't feel like ownership's going to be overweight on any of these guys, but I will be overweight on all of these guys, in that they're in a great matchup. And I do think this game is going to put up some points. So for the sake of this one, I will put in Tyler Conklin. This would be my stack here for the Chargers, and I would look to bring it back on the other side with Ashton Genty, or if you're thinking that Brock Bowers' injury is not as bad as what it looked like it was, you could put Bowers in there, or Jacoby Myers over on DraftKings, in that all those guys are going to see a ton of concentrated target volume for the Raiders. So for the Chargers, this is what my stack would look like. And then as we talk about these guys individually, Omarion Hampton, you can play him in any size field. Najee Harris would be a decent size field before I look to get him in there. We're talking about a 2,000-man field before I look to get Najee in the lineup. Ladd McConkey, you can play him in any. Quentin Johnston would be preferred over on a FanDuel versus over on DraftKings. But if I were going to play him on DraftKings, I would play him in medium-sized field contest, 2,000, 5,000 entries. Keenan Allen, you can play in any. Trey Harris would be a little bit of a dart throw, kind of almost viewed in the same light as Quentin Johnston. And then Keandre Lambert Smith would be a large field dart throw for me in the Millionaire Maker. I do like mixing these guys in. I don't mind playing one of these guys. I would not play more than one in the same lineup, but Conklin, Disley, and Gadsden, I think you can play any of those guys as a salary saver in any type of field contest for tonight. And that's going to do it for the Chargers. And then as we look over to close this thing out with the Raiders, you have Geno Smith, Ashton Genty. To a lesser extent, you have Raheem Mostert. And then as we look at the wide receiver position, we have Jacoby Myers, who would be my preferred option on DraftKings, along with either Besh or Tucker. If we're playing over on FanDuel, I would prefer Deontay Thornton Jr. over on FanDuel versus Besh and Tucker. But if we're playing on DraftKings, I would have Geno, Genty, Myers. I would probably skip one of those guys, and I would go straight to Brock Bowers or Marcelo Myers. Don't mind playing. I'm sorry, Michael. Is it Michael Myers or Marcelo Myers? I get those two guys mixed up. So it's Michael Myers. Marcelo Myers plays for the Red Sox, so just completely overlook that. Let's just pretend that never happened. But I would prefer to get Brock Bowers in my lineup here, and then due to salary, I think you're going to want to look back. You can have Michael Myers and or Mayer in the same lineup as Brock Bowers, and then you can have Besh or Tucker in there as well. For the sake of this one, we'll put Tucker in there. So this would be my 5-man stack for Las Vegas. Again, typically I build for onslaughts. You don't have to if that's not what you're feeling, but I just think with the condensed slate, if one team goes off, that can bury some lineups. And that's just how I look to get different as I look to onslaught. You can also leave salary on the board tonight. You don't have to play the full 50K over on DK, but you can if you'd like. And then just kind of looking through a couple of lineups here. If I had Baker in there, I would probably go with Bucky, and then I would look at, let's go ahead and throw Evans and Edgebuka and Otten in there. So where do we get different, right? We have 5,000 left per player. I think we could take a look at, I think Amarian Hampton is just too cheap, honestly. I do think he's going to get better as the season goes along. For the sake of this one, we will plug him in there, and that leaves us $4,800 per player. And then next up, I would throw Ladd McConkey in there, and then you guys can figure it out from there. You have a lot of cheap options, and then the defenses aren't highly priced at all. That's probably where I would lean in this build. And then as we clear this one out and head over to the Houston side, looking at Houston, we got Stroud. I would probably throw Wally in there just to get a bit off the board. You got Nico, and then you got Dalton Schultz. That's probably where I would leave it with Houston. I like the onslaught look, but there's just not a lot to love, and this offense has no offensive line whatsoever. And we have 6K salary already. So in this one, I'd probably look to go with a 4-man. And then as we look back across the board here, I mean, you can pretty much get whoever you want after that. You could go Bucky. You could even put Genty in your flex. You could go McConkey. You could go Edgebuka. And then that leaves you $3,100 for a defense. I mean, that's not bad at all. Again, we're not caring about salary and how much salary you leave on the board. You don't want to leave a ton. I mean, but if you leave 1,000, you'll be fine. 700's fine, 300's fine, that kind of thing. You don't want to treat it like a showdown contest where you're just building whatever. But you want to be smart about what you're doing. So you can, if you have a lineup together that has Mike Evans in it and it has maxed out salary, but maybe you build that lineup and you put it in a smaller field contest, and in the large field contest, you bring Mike Evans back to Edgebuka, and then you put that one in there, and whatever that salary difference is, you leave that on the table. That kind of thing is what you want to be looking at tonight if you're playing the large field millionaire contest, as it's going to be hard to be a single winner without being duped on a 2-game slate. But as we go over to the Los Angeles game again, I would go Herbert, I would go Hampton, I would go with McConkey, Keenan Allen, and then for this one, let's throw in Tyler Conklin. Again, that's $5,900. As we look back over the board here, I would probably lean to go with Genty next up. And I don't know why they put him in the flex, but we'll go here with a running back position. We'll go Genty, and then, for the sake of this one, we'll put Edgebuka in there, and that, leaves the defense in a flex. You guys can figure it out from there. I don't want to give you too much love here on the channel, but we'll go over to the Vegas side next, and we will go with Gino. We will go with Genty. We will go with Myers, and we will go with Brock Bowers. You can mix in another one of those Vegas guys if you'd like, but there's just too much to love on the board. And then next up, I would look to get McConkey in there. Damn, why does it keep throwing him in the flex? I would go McConkey in the wide receiver spot. Yeah, you guys know what I'm trying to get. I would go McConkey in the wide receiver spot. Apparently, I'm too special to get that done. And then looking at the rest of the board, I mean, you could go Nico, Edgebuka, Evans, Bucky. I mean, there's just a lot of guys that you can get in there. Hampton, a lot of guys to finish that build out, but you kind of get where I'm going with that. I think, again, if you're considering playing on DraftKings versus FanDuel, my preferred DraftKings plays, just kind of looking over this, would be at quarterback, I would go Herbert and Gino, given that the pricing is flipped over on FanDuel. At the running back position, I prefer Bucky, Genty, Hampton, White, Marks, Pierce to a lesser extent. And then you go down the board here and you got basically free Wally, who I don't mind getting to him in larger field tournaments, and then Sean Tucker as well. And at the wide receiver position, Nico, Ladd McConkey would be preferred on DraftKings, Nico on either, Mike Evans on either, but preferred on FanDuel a little bit more. Edgebuka on either, prefer on DraftKings more. Quentin Johnston would be a FanDuel play for me. Don't mind playing him on DraftKings, but prefer him over on FanDuel. Jacoby Myers and Keenan Allen would be preferred on DraftKings. Higgins would be preferred, and Deontay Thornton on FanDuel. Besh and Tucker are fine on either as salary savers, but would probably lean to play them on DraftKings first. Jalen Noel, Xavier Hutchinson, Trey Harris, and Shepard would all be DraftKings plays first. Watson would be a FanDuel play. Keandre Lambert-Smith would be a FanDuel play. And then as we scroll down here, there's not a lot past that on the board at the wide receiver position. And then the position I actually love tonight is the tight end position, because I think all these guys are viable. And I don't think ownership was going to concentrate too heavily. And then if we're talking about ownership, I think Bowers might come in a little over-owned, and I actually like some of these other guys a little bit more than I would usually, given the injury to Bowers. So I don't mind getting Kate Otten, Schultz, Conklin, Disley, Mayer, whatever the hell his name is, Gadsden. You can mix him in larger field tournaments. I think you just get different at the tight end position tonight. Again, over on FanDuel, you could play Harrison Bryant, given that every other secondary tight end for Houston's on IR already. But that would be how I would break it down for tonight's slate. I appreciate you guys being here to follow me throughout the video. Hopefully you get something out of the content and make it all the way through to this point. If you did, drop a like on the video, and why not subscribe to the channel. Check out the videos that I break down player by player, slate by slate throughout the NFL season over on DraftKings. I appreciate you guys being here again. Hopefully you can join me throughout the ride for the rest of the season. Have a good Monday night. Hope you guys take down a millionaire maker over on DraftKings.